Hello there. I hope you're well. As always, Mr. Mesh is good. This is the second part to our 5-part series on the Keynesian models. And in this part, we are going to now include the government. Remember, in the first video, if you haven't watched it, please go back and watch it. It's called Keynesian Models Part 1. It introduces the model and it introduces a lot of concepts, a lot of terms that you need to understand. In this section, we add government to our simple model that we developed in the first part of this series. So, remember we said aggregate expenditure, total spending, is given by consumption by households, investments by firms, spending by the government, and net exports. There is households as one sector, firms another sector, the government is third sector, which is why we are saying we have 3 sectors now. With 3 sectors, we ignore the foreign sector, which is net exports. So we are going to be dealing with these 3. As always, our consumption function is given by autonomous consumption plus induced consumption. This is the autonomous part of consumption. This is the autonomous part. And this whole thing here is the induced part. What we are saying is that in this case, consumption is either independent of income, it's always there when income is 0, or it's induced. This part depends on the level of income. And how much of your income you consume is determined by this small letter c, which we refer to as the marginal propensity to consume. We explained what this is in the previous video, the change in consumption over change in income, by how much your consumption changes when your income is changed by 1 unit or $1, R1, whatever currency that you're using. All right. So our government in this model is autonomous. Investments are autonomous. This word autonomous, it just means that these values are independent of income. They are independent of the level of income. So, once you have the government, you are going to increase the equilibrium level of income. Initially, we had this. So what I'm going to put here is the total spending with autonomous income and autonomous investments. With always draw the 45-degree line, don't forget it, which is our line of equilibrium. This angle here is 45 degrees. It shows you all equilibrium points where total spending is equal to the level of output. This is the total spending on the y-axis, and income, y represents income on the x-axis. So we use y for income because already I is representing investments. So the total spending function is going to be like this. Where it meets the equilibrium line, this is the equilibrium level of income. So this total spending is simply consumption by households, investment by firms. With the government, the spending has to go up. The spending has to go up. You have this higher level of income. And this total spending now is not just households and firms, but we have included a government. Always this intercept is autonomous, regardless of how many sectors you have. So in this instance, it's consumption by households, or just the autonomous part, investments, and government spending. So always this part where there's an intercept here, it's always autonomous expenditure. This is always autonomous, which is the total income that is independent, the total spending that is independent of the level of income. All right, the graph is going to look like this. And therefore, our total spending A, it's the C, which is in two parts: autonomous consumption, induced consumption, investments, which is autonomous, and government expenditure. All right. So I'm going to continue this on the next slide and show you how we get the equilibrium level of income. All right. Aggregate expenditure is consumption by households, investments by firms, spending by the government. We ignore the foreign sector. Aggregate expenditure is autonomous consumption plus induced consumption. All of this is equal to our C. And then investments plus government spending. We know that in equilibrium, remember, in equilibrium, the total spending, aggregate expenditure, is equals to the equilibrium level of income, is equals to income Y. So we substitute where there's an A, we substitute with Y. We remove this A, we put a Y. Now we are in equilibrium. Autonomous consumption plus induced consumption plus investments plus G is equals to Y. We put the like terms together, which means we move this to the other side. So this becomes a negative. You know that. I mean, maths 1 or pre-maths. You subtract C minus Y. Autonomous consumption, investments plus government spending. You take out the Y. So Y 1 minus C is total autonomous expenditure. Autonomous consumption, investments, and government. And then you divide both sides by 1 over C. So the equilibrium level of income is 1 over 1 minus C multiplied by autonomous consumption, autonomous investments, autonomous spending by government. This first part, so always remember this. This first part you can see here, this is the value of the multiplier, which I called alpha. So let me write it here. Multiplier, which I called alpha. And this part is the total autonomous expenditure, which we use A bar. So like before, the equilibrium level of income should always be the multiplier multiplied by total autonomous expenditure. In our case, total autonomous expenditure is not just, this is not just C plus I, C bar plus I, but now there is a G. Okay, but the multiplier is the same because we added government, which is autonomous, so that does not affect the multiplier. Doesn't affect the multiplier. With income being equal to the change, the multiplier times autonomous expenditure, what you must understand is that the multiplier is assumed constant because we said everyone has the same marginal propensity to consume. If there is, the multiplier can then be written as simply your change in income over your change in autonomous expenditure. So you can use this formula to calculate the multiplier if you are given different values of income and expenditure. All right. Let's look at an example. We're going to do an example now to help with your understanding. We have a closed economy. If an economy is closed, it means that there is no government, there's no foreign sector. That's what closed economy means. Sometimes they can use the word autarky or autarky. This means that the economy is closed, there's no interaction with the rest of the world. You are given this, the following is known for that economy. They want you to calculate the multiplier. We said the multiplier, part 1, the multiplier is 1 over 1 minus the marginal propensity to consume, because there's no taxes here. There are no taxes here, and the economy is in autarky, it's closed. So this is 1 over 1 minus the marginal propensity to consume is given here, 0.65, which is alpha. The multiplier is 1 over 0.35. Put this in your calculator. You should get 2.86. I've rounded this to 2 decimal places. Okay, I've rounded this to 2 decimal places. So whenever I'm doing these calculations, I always want to do them again when I'm going through the session, just in case I made a mistake when I was doing the initial calculation. Yeah, Mr. Mesh is human. He can make mistakes as well. Let's look at the second part. Always remember the equilibrium level of income. The equilibrium level of income is the multiplier times the total autonomous expenditure. This is the formula. Don't forget it. The multiplier, we calculated it in the first part, is 2.86. The total autonomous expenditure, you take all the autonomous values here. Autonomous consumption, 200 million. Investment spending is autonomous, 500. Government spending is autonomous, 255. Okay, so we add this. So the equilibrium level of income is the multiplier 2.86 times the total autonomous expenditure, which is, if you add this 200 plus 500 plus 255, you must get 955 million. Then you multiply this by 2.86. We are going to use the rounded off values. And then you get 2,731. Let's keep it as a whole number like this. Okay, so these numbers are rounded off. If you didn't round off the multiplier, you might get a different number. But if you round it off, you get this number. All right. My advice when you're doing this, you can save the whole number here as it is and use it as it is. If you use the whole value here, you should get an equilibrium level of income, which I got earlier, 2728.57. Again, I rounded off to 2 decimal places, but it's fine. This is neither here nor there. What's important is understanding the concept. Now, they want you to calculate by how much government spending should change if you want to reach the full employment level of income. Remember, equilibrium income is this is part 3. Equilibrium income is the multiplier multiplied by autonomous expenditure. The change in government is the change in this part here. So the change in income has to be the multiplier times the change in this part, the autonomous expenditure, right? Which means to get the change in autonomous spending, which is G, I just replace autonomous with G because what we want is specifically G. Doesn't matter, you can keep the A. It's now, we divide both sides by the multiplier. It's change in income over alpha. All right. And then this is equal to, you take the new value that is given to you, which is the full employment 2050. Then you subtract the income that you calculated, this one, 2731. You divide by the multiplier 2.86. And then you solve this 2050 minus 2731. You divide this by 2.86. You must get 238. It's a negative 238. So what this means, because it's a negative, the government must decrease its spending by 238 million. The government must decrease its spending by 238 million. So, like I promised, this was going to be a short section. The only thing that has changed is the autonomous consumption, but everything else remains the same, because we know that at the end of the day, to get the equilibrium income, we must just take our multiplier and multiply it by the total autonomous expenditure. And this multiplier, in this instance, because autonomous expenditure does not depend on income, our multiplier remained 1 over 1 minus the marginal propensity to consume. Also remember this. This is the same as saying 1 over the marginal propensity to save. You're going to see as we get deeper into this that ultimately your multiplier is going to be given by 1 over the sum of all the leakages or withdrawals. You must know what leakages are by now. Taking money out of the economy. When you are saving, you're not using the money, you're keeping it, so it's a leakage. You're taking money out. But consumption is actually an injection. You're putting money into the economy. All right. So 1 over S is a leakage. Marginal propensity to save. As I promised, this was going to be a short session. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you want any further clarity, here's our details. You can WhatsApp us, you can email us here, you can email us there. And in the meantime, I want you guys to enjoy economics. Mr. Mesh is out. Peace.